After every financial crisis, there's this huge rush to build smarter, better safety nets. But what if the real threat isn't the next big shock we can see coming? What if it's a kind of quiet decay from within? Today, we're diving into why even the best designed financial frameworks seem to fail over time.
So let's just get right to it. What's the central puzzle here? Institutions spend a fortune, right? They hire the smartest people to build these sophisticated frameworks to stop the last crisis from ever happening again. So why does it feel like they're always caught flat-footed for the next one? Well, the source material we're digging into today from the Bank and Finance Consulting Group suggests the problem isn't a lack of brilliant ideas. Not at all. The real culprit, they argue, is something much quieter, a subtle erosion happening deep inside these organizations. And that leads us right to the core diagnosis from their report, a phenomenon they call institutional drift. This is the key idea we really need to unpack.
Okay, so what is institutional drift? Just think of it like a slow, silent decay. From the outside, everything looks totally fine. The reports are getting filed, the meetings are happening, all the proper procedures are being followed. But on the inside, the institution's actual ability to think critically, to exercise real judgment, has been quietly weakening. So how does this actually happen? Well, active judgment, the very thing these frameworks are supposed to support, slowly, almost invisibly, degrades into simple box ticking. The process might look exactly the same on paper, but all the critical thinking has been hollowed out. And a huge driver of this is something the research calls ritualization.
Here's a perfect example. A stress test that was originally designed to be this really rigorous, creative deep dive into potential risks. Well, over time, it just becomes another report you have to file by the deadline. The form is still there, but the substance, that active, engaged judgment, is gone. That's ritualization, and it's what hollows out these frameworks from the inside. And here's the kicker. This internal erosion is the single biggest long-term threat. It's not some sudden external shock, but this slow decay. So, what do we do about it?
Well, if institutional drift is the problem, the report argues we've got to make a fundamental shift in our thinking. We need to move away from just chasing periodic insights and start building durable, lasting capabilities.
And look, this distinction is absolutely critical. An insight, that's episodic. It's that brilliant one-off report, right? The post-mortem after a crisis that gets everyone's attention for, a few weeks. But a capability? That's totally different. It's continuous. It's woven into the very DNA of how an organization operates, day in and day out.
Let's break this down a little more. You see, an insight is often tied to specific people, a brilliant analyst, a key leader, but what happens when those people leave? Or when their attention just moved on to the next fire? Poof, the insight just fades away. A true capability, on the other hand, is baked right into the institution's processes and culture. It survives staff turnover, it survives new leadership, because it's part of the system itself.
And this right here is the heart of the matter. You see, understanding a risk is not the same thing as having the sustained ability to actually manage it. An organization can have a library full of amazing analysis, but if it doesn't have that embedded day-to-day capability, the insight is fragile. It's easily forgotten, especially when the waters are calm. Okay, so how do you actually build this durable capability? The answer isn't just writing more rules or creating more procedures. It's about embedding a new, persistent way of reasoning deep inside the institution itself. To fight this drift, the research points to 3 core ideas that have to be embedded. First, you need a persistent, system-wide view. You can't just look at one bank or one sector in a vacuum. Second, you have to focus on the logic of interaction. Basically, how does a fire in one part of the forest spread to the whole thing? And maybe most importantly, you have to protect the primacy of human judgment. You've got to make sure there's always room for an expert to step in and say, wait a minute, this checklist doesn't make sense here. And this is where it gets really interesting. It's all about striking a careful balance. On one hand, you have these core principles, the things that have to be anchored, like always looking at the whole system. Those don't change. But on the other hand, the tools you use, like your specific risk models or stress scenarios, those have to be constantly adapting and evolving. Because if your tools get stuck in the past, guess what? They just become another empty ritual, and you're right back to square one with that institutional drift. So when you put all of this together, it leads to a completely new vision for what financial oversight should even be. It's not some static framework of rules. The report calls it stewardship as a living, breathing institutional capability.
And this is so important. Stewardship isn't about the impossible dream of preventing every single crisis. That's just an illusion. It's about preserving the institution's ability to reason, to learn, and to act with responsibility, especially when you're facing that deep uncertainty, where there just aren't any easy answers.
And this quote from the report just nails it perfectly. Frameworks do not exercise judgment, institutions do. I mean, think about that. A framework is just a piece of paper, a tool. It has no power on its own. It's the people, the culture, the institution itself that has to do the hard work of thinking. And that leaves us with a really provocative question to chew on. How do we make sure our institutions remember how to think, especially during those long, quiet periods when everything seems perfectly fine? Maybe, just maybe, preventing the next big disaster isn't about inventing some shiny new algorithm. Maybe it's about the much harder day in, day out work of keeping institutional memory alive and defending the space for real human judgment.